Social media infographics are shaping our political discourse, and young people's minds are on the chopping block. It's now trendy to despise patriotism and cancel those who think differently than us. I'm Cameron Arcand. I'm launching the Young Not Stupid interview series, powered by the Western Journal. I'll be interviewing a wide variety of guests through a conservative lens with people that will better equip you with the truth about what's happening in our country and around the globe. President Ronald Reagan once said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction, and we need to take that to heart. So tune in each Friday to the Young Not Stupid interview series to be prepared in the fight for the values that make America exceptional. Hey everyone, welcome back to the second edition of the Young Not Stupid interview series powered by the Western Journal. Today's guest I've known since before he got big. He is a reporter at the Daily Caller. He's been doing coverage of riots and at the border, and it's really been amazing to watch his journey. So today, most recently, Jorge Ventura has been doing coverage at the Rio Grande Valley region of the southern border, and he's been really getting an inside look of what's been going on down there and what the establishment media and what all these other outlets are not telling you. So, Jorge, can you tell me what you've been seeing on the ground in recent days?
Hey, Cameron. So yeah, the migrant crisis throughout southern Texas. So I've been covering the border crisis as soon as it really started. So it really started around March is when the border crisis news started to really hit. We went down there to check it out. When I first went down there, I was just shocked to see the amount of Central Americans hitting the border all at once in these large family units. And when I talked to Border Patrol about this, they told me that this is actually done by the cartels and human smuggling groups on purpose. So what the cartels and human smuggling groups like to do, and I really, like I said, had no idea about this until you get down there, is they like to push all these they like to push all these Central Americans into these huge caravan groups in the hundreds, and they like to push them in certain sectors all at once. So when we were down there, they were coming in through McAllen and the La Jolla area. And the reason why these cartels and human smuggling groups do this is they like to overwhelm the Border Patrol with these huge units. So they have to take hours and hours processing. They have to, it takes hours to separate the dads from not the real dads of the migrants, of the unaccompanied minors. And the number one reason they do this is when you have all of the Border Patrol kind of focused and centered in one area of the border, and overwhelmed, that leaves the rest of the border open for drugs to come in. So since the beginning of the border crisis, fentanyl has come into the country by an over 600% increase compared to last year. So we're seeing numbers in there we've never seen before. And that was in the beginning of the year. So, when I'm down there, I was thinking, it couldn't get worse than this, right? And then fast forward a few months later, we have now 15,000 Haitians. We're stuck under that Del Rio Bridge, and it's just overwhelming. Border Patrol, July and August were the first months ever in Border Patrol history that they reached over 200,000 apprehensions. We're already over 1 million apprehensions for the year, and that's not even counting the number of gotaways. So kind of just to wrap it up, it's a real crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. Border Patrol is absolutely overwhelmed because every single Border Patrol facility is over 100% in capacity. Some of these facilities are over capacity by 500%, and the situation is just very overwhelming down there in South Texas.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, I thought this was as worse as it was going to get. We were seeing over 1 million migrant encounters reported by Border Patrol, unprecedented levels of drug trafficking taking place. And then this situation happens where we have a ton of Haitian political refugees just suddenly popping up in Del Rio, Texas. And you kind of look more closely and you kind of see the way that they've been communicating and the way the messages get out. There is clearly some money in this, like you've been saying. So what I want to ask you is, what have you been seeing when you talk with Border Patrol and other military enforcement at the border? How are they responding to this situation? Because that's gotten some controversy as well.
Yeah, so down there in Texas, the situation got so bad that the Republican governor down there, Greg Abbott, he had to launch what is called his Operation Lone Star. So for the first time, and basically really in Texas history, they're now sending National Guard and Texas State Troopers to the border to actually help out Border Patrol. This has never really happened before. So all of a sudden, you got Texas State Troopers in the air. You got them on boats, trying to do the best they can to quell just this huge migrant wave that keeps coming down. What's really happening is that Border Patrol and all these units are doing the best they can to stop the flow of migrants. The thing is, this is really all just driven by policy. So they're down there working as hard as they can, but they can only do so much when the policies are against them. And what do I mean by that? So when we went from the reason why we actually are even seeing a border crisis in this migrant wave is when we went from a transition from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. The Biden administration literally put the signal out. Like, this is not my words. Kamala Harris says it in a speech that they will not deport anyone who is seeking asylum in the United States, and that they are going to be the more humane administration. So they put out the signal that, hey, we're not going to be deporting migrants, as fast or as easy as the Trump administration. And then the second was, as soon as Biden came in, I remembered on his first day, he put the executive order where they removed the Remain in Mexico policy. For the audience who might not be too familiar with the Remain in Mexico policy, the Remain in Mexico policy was instilled under the Trump administration. And this one policy deterred illegal immigration because for a migrant, the thinking was, why would I risk my life, to cross all these countries, to cross through Mexico, encounter cartels and human smuggling groups, only to cross into the U.S. to be given a court order, but instead of being released into the U.S. with that court order, how we always would do things, you would then have to wait in Mexico in a border town. So for them, the risk was too high to even want to do the trip because these border towns are all cartel control that they use these migrants for human trafficking and human smuggling. They don't want to put themselves in that situation. So when the Biden administration came in, they just removed that policy right away. So that kind of put out the bat signal in a way for these caravans and human smuggling groups to tell the migrants, hey, the time to come to the U.S. is now. You're not going to get deported. You'll be given some type of temporary protected status, some type of asylum status. And that's why we saw this huge influx in the beginning of the year with the Central Americans. Then after that, I remember a month or two later, I was in the ground in Del Rio. We were running into the huge Venezuelan wave. I know some of the audience has seen those viral videos of us in Del Rio where we were filming all the Venezuelans coming through the Del Rio River. And now we're getting hit with the Haitian wave, and we're going to continuing to get hit by them. We're getting reports right now that there's more than 20,000 Haitians that are still on the way to our border. The majority of those Haitians are stuck in Tapachula, Mexico. Some of them have already crossed through Panama, so they're making their way. So it's really, the Border Patrol is doing the best they can, but when the policies are kind of set against you, it makes their job very difficult. I mean, the only ones that are really getting deported are the single males. I mean, we saw that with the Haitians, right? They were deporting the single males. The family units didn't get deported; they got released into the United States. So they're doing the best they can, but they feel like the policies right now are not helping them at all.
Yeah, and you make an interesting point there about the Remain in Mexico policy. They repealed a lot of these Trump policies on day one, or at least within the first month. And you had within weeks this surge starting to begin. And it's worth noting that the Supreme Court even stepped in and said, hey, you guys couldn't have repealed this Remain in Mexico policy. You need to go and make whatever revisions you want to it, but you need to go ahead and bring this back because we're seeing so many issues with this right now. And we also talk about stopping border wall construction and all these different things. And I think there is this weird mix up where a lot of people, Democratic politicians in the left, have this belief that securing our border means that we are all of a sudden very anti-immigration, very nativist, and that's not what's happening. We need to just have a process where our border is safe and secure, because that's also fair to those migrants too, to making sure that they're getting the information and getting clear-cut notions of what's happening at the border to fuel their immigration decision themselves. So kind of diving a little bit deeper into that, do you think, what should the Biden administration be doing right now to mitigate this situation? Because right now it seems like they aren't really doing anything.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing for me is I know our country is really driven by politics, left versus right, but this is actually like just an American problem, and I don't see for me, looking at the outside in, I don't see the political gain in not solving the border issue. This is an issue that the Biden administration is also taking a hit in their approval rating. We were speaking to sources from the Department of Homeland Security, and they told us that the reason that they cleared out those Haitian migrants so fast from that bridge was that the Biden administration was taking such a political blowback on it. I mean, on optics, it just looks horrible for the Biden administration to have 15,000 people living on an American bridge with, with the conditions really not humane at all. I was interviewing some of those Haitian migrants that were eating once a day, but just from like I said, we had the Supreme Court judge. He said to instill the Remain in Mexico policy. I haven't seen any evidence when I'm down there that that policy is being instilled by the Biden administration. So we haven't seen that, even though the judge says they have to do it. We haven't. I like I said, I haven't seen it. If anyone has a different example, please show me. But when I speak to Border Patrol and I say, "What do you guys need to solve this, or at least help quell the flow?" And the answer that I always get, and like I said, just take the politics out of it, is they say we need a border wall. We don't care what you call the wall. You could call it a Texas wall. You could call it the Trump wall. You could call it whatever you want. But he says they always say is the border wall will help out Border Patrol. Now they do say it doesn't just solve the issue. With a snap of your fingers, you have a wall. It's done. But they say that the wall does give them some time to get to these migrants and to begin apprehension. But they feel that the wall is a huge help, and that's step one. Any type of funding that they could receive is, they would love it. But right now, I honestly don't even see if the wall is possible. I was looking into the numbers. Washington Examiner did a great report where every piece of mile for a border wall actually costs taxpayers $1 million. For folks who don't know, Texas and Mexico, that Texaco-Mexico boundary, only 11% of it has any type of wall or fencing. So essentially, you have 89% of that border wide open. And when it costs taxpayers $20 million just to get a mile of it, it's looking like that wall is impossible. I know Republican Governor Greg Abbott, he came out like 2 months ago and said that Texas was going to build its own border wall, and then he made a down payment of $250,000. I was looking at people like, maybe that headline looks sexy for Republican voters, but in reality, that doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't even get you a mile. So they need border wall. They need more funding, but I think they just need the policies to help them out. I don't know exactly what that looks like. A way where they could arrest these human smugglers on the spot. So I know, Cameron, you've seen some of our videos when we're in Roma, Texas. We're filming the human smugglers on those raft boats, right? They're coming over in person, right in front of us, and they're doing it right in front of National Guard. I asked National Guard, how come you're not arresting these human smugglers in the water? And the answer that I get from National Guard is they can't pursue the smugglers because they're afraid that if they do, the smugglers will flip the rafts over and essentially would drown the migrant babies and children, knowing that the National Guard is going to attend to them instead of them. So these solutions are not clear cut, but off the top of my head, when I speak to Border Patrol, they always say we need a border wall somehow to at least help us, at least stop the flow, and we could get there. And then when it comes to these processing centers, I mean, they're, like I said, they're all over capacity, and they're so over capacity that we're releasing migrants into the country knowing that they're testing positive for COVID-19. Secretary Mayorkas came out and said that 20% of that Haitian migrant caravan tested positive for COVID-19. So we need some type of system. I know it will start with a border wall, a Remain in Mexico policy, because that already will deter illegal immigration, because then that puts it in the minds of migrants. Hey, don't even risk the journey because we're going to put you right back in Mexico if you risk that journey. That will at least start to do something. But right now, the Biden administration is like I said, it's odd because it just looks like they have almost no urgency to solve this issue.
Yeah, and you're exactly right about that. There was this notion that once Biden became president, we would have a more compassionate border policy, which, if this is compassion, I don't really know what compassion is at this point, because they would like to pretend that they are being much more humane than the previous administration. The whole kids in cages narrative and all these different conditions. It's the same thing, if not worse. And a lot of the stuff that they were saying about the previous administration ended up being debunked later. So it's really hard for them to do any sort of damage control right now. But my last question for you is, we're talking more about the governmental side of this, but what have you been hearing from the migrants who are there on the ground? Is there any notable stories that you would like to share?
When these migrants are coming in a legit family unit, I mean, like a real, the mom and dad and the kids, so a real family unit, something that actually happens quite often is that when we meet these family units in the U.S., the reason why the husband sometimes is not there with them is because these cartels actually like to kidnap the males and the adult males and then use them as drug runners or hitmen. So there, it's a pretty common story where you have these migrant groups coming from Central America that their husbands will get kept in Mexico and be and essentially used as drug runners or hitmen. Another one is when you interview migrant women is the horrible stories of sexual assault, rape on the way to the U.S. border. That's something that we hear. The ones that really stand out to me, and we're going to release a couple of new videos on, is when you interview the unaccompanied minors and you talk to these minors and their parents are back in their home country. They travel alone, and just to hear how they essentially have to leave everything behind and come alone, even with with no parents, traveling through Mexico and cartels and human smuggler groups. That always stands out. And a common thing though when you talk to all of them is that they're all excited to be here in the U.S. So these are, when we run into these groups, these are the people who are, like I said, these are votable people. These are not your criminals. These are people that are, are probably are really in danger back in their home countries with MS-13 and gang violence, especially in countries like Nicaragua and Honduras. But they're just being taken advantage by the cartels, kind of getting sold this fake dream. So with them, these are just regular people that essentially have been taken advantage of, have been either sexually assaulted, raped on their way to the border. Like I said, one thing that just stands out is when you're speaking to the unaccompanied minors that don't have anyone, don't have any family, who are essentially going to be under custody under the U.S. federal government. New York Times just put out a great report last month that 1 out of every 3 unaccompanied children getting released into the United States, the U.S. government loses track of. So kind of, it's an example of kids getting lost in the system. So all those stories, really stand out. Hearing the journeys of what they have to go through in Mexico, encountering these cartels and smuggling groups. I've interviewed migrants that they'll reach the U.S. Mexico border, but they're essentially kept in Mexico a little bit longer because they're kept in these migrant stash houses on the Mexican side. So we're talking about these hotel rooms or these small homes where there's over 100 migrants stashed in there and basically being used by the cartels as kind of a prop. So the cartels will use them as a like I said, when they've used these huge migrant groups in caravans, they'll go to these stash houses, they'll get the migrants they want to use, and they'll basically put them in one place at the border, all in once, to overwhelm border patrol. Like this, they're able to smuggle drugs into the country easier. So, yeah, it's sad stories, man. It's even with the Haitians. Speaking to the Haitians, they've been living in Chile for over 5 years. They haven't been in Haiti in a long time, and they had to make a journey where they had to cross over 11 countries, and they're getting sold this dream that if I could, just make it to the U.S., I'm gonna give them some type of protection, temporary protected status. So all these communities are just literally being taken advantage by the cartels. It's open season, and according to some of the border patrol sources that we speak to, these cartels are making up to $14 million a day just off human smuggling. We're not even counting drug profits.
Wow, it's absolute tragedy what's going down at the border, and hopefully this crisis will be over soon, but it's certainly not looking like it. So this is Joe Biden's America. These are the policies that he has decided to put in place, and this is what you get. So thank you so much, Jorge, for talking with me today. For those of you who would like to see more Western Journal content, please head to our website, westernjournal.com or westernjournal.com/join to become a member. Also, remember to like and subscribe to these videos that you see. It really matters a lot that you support us to support conservative journalism. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.